Greetings fellow gorehounds and welcome back to another Blood Splattered vlog. So before we get into the review, I want to mention that this week's movie, All Throughout the House, was actually sent to me as a screener. Meaning the people that actually made the movie sent this to me specifically so that I could review it. Now personally, I don't feel that painted my opinion, but just in case, I feel like full disclosure is actually warranted here. And with that out of the way, let's talk about All Throughout the House. This movie is an interesting one to talk about because on the surface, this is categorically a bad movie. There's terrible sound design, there's terrible acting, like wooden as shit, especially one character. One character was just god-awful. And the cinematography is just kind of bland, boring, and doesn't really have anything going for it. But all that being said, this movie has what I guess I would call charm to it. And by charm, I guess what I'm talking about is this movie's sense of humor. This movie does not take itself too seriously, and in fact actually perfectly captures the mood and tone of 80s slashers. I mean, it doesn't look like one at all, but it feels like one. Which I know is a little weird to say, but I'm not exactly sure how to describe it. But for example, this is a movie that not only opens up with, two couples getting ready to have sex, it also opens up with 2 castrations in the span of like 15 minutes. And you actually do get to see the dick, which is a bonus. Plus, it doesn't shy away from the gore effects. I mean, most of it is basically, you see the slasher slash and then you see the aftermath, but the aftermath is actually really fucking good. It's like that other slasher I reviewed a few weeks back about the high school reunion. It's similar in that regard when it comes to the effects, though way more gory. But unlike that slasher, this movie doesn't take itself as seriously and feels way more like an 80s slasher than a 90s slasher. In fact, it even has that crazy old character who is just going batshit nuts and does not shy away from hamming it up at any moment. She was actually one of my favorite characters, and I thought I was gonna not like her when this movie started. Also, if you're a low-budget horror fan, this movie actually stars Jessica Cameron. Really briefly, but she is in the movie. And she was probably the best performance out of any of them, even though she was only there for about 5 minutes. But yeah, while this movie didn't do like the grindhouse thing and mimic the visual style of the 80s, it does kind of feel like if you just added a little bit of VHS grain, this would have been a really solid shot-on-shitio movie. With solid being a relative term here, I guess I should say solid for someone like me that likes shitty movies like that. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, I'm not sure what more to say. I feel like I've basically covered all my bases already, so let's move on to the spoilers. So basically this movie is about another killer Santa Claus on the loose just killing people having sex. We're not exactly sure why, but as the movie goes on it becomes more apparent. But basically our main character is this girl who is visiting her grandma for Christmas. And she ends up getting roped into watching her grandma's neighbor's house over Christmas night, and she ropes 2 of her friends in to come with her. And naturally, these 2 friends are purely there to add to the body count. And this movie actually has a really high body count. There's a lot of characters that are introduced just to die. And I don't mind that because 90% of these characters are usually involved in some sort of sexy time before they die, so props to you, movie, for getting the 80s right. There's even a surprise lesbian couple. That was pretty cool. So yeah, as the movie goes on, it becomes very clear that the person whose house they're watching is actually batshit crazy. And the question becomes, is this woman the killer? Or is her missing daughter the killer? Or is it someone else entirely and this whole crazy woman is a complete red herring? And it turns out the missing daughter is the killer, but she's not a daughter, she was actually a son that the mom turned into a daughter because she hates men. Which right away already feels very sleepaway camp and very 80s. Which I think if there's one thing 80s slashers taught us, it's that, you shouldn't force genders on your kids. You should let them figure that out for themselves. Otherwise, they'll cut your fucking head off. And it turns out the reason why this killer has been castrating all the guys that he's been coming across is because he wants a dick for himself. Because his mom cut it off when he was a kid. Because she's crazy. Also, there's an entirely other subplot about how the girl who is watching the house is actually the daughter of the woman's ex-husband, so therefore she's technically the half-sister to the killer, which is completely forced and entirely unnecessary, but you know what? That kind of ridiculous twist also feels very 80s. It's like Halloween 2. Hey Laurie, guess what? You're Michael's sister too. What? No! Damn straight, you're gonna be running your whole life because apparently he's got psychic links to you now. I don't fucking know. It's Halloween. So yeah, I guess this is a really short vlog because this is a really simple slasher movie and there's not much more to say other than to talk about various kills. I guess I could talk about my favorite kill. There is one kill in this movie in which a character is strapped to a bed under the belief that his girlfriend is gonna come in and do some kinky shit to him, but instead the killer comes in and chops off his dick. And when he does, the girlfriend's cat comes in and eats the dick, so I guess in a way, he did get a little pussy. There's also some really great, like, head stabbings in this movie. There is one point where the person takes some shears and just jams it into this girl's throat, and it comes out the other end. I'm pretty sure the top part looked like it was a little off from the bottom part, but you know, that kind of effects fuck-up is also very 80s. I don't know what else to say. This movie feels like an 80s slasher just shot on, you know, modern cameras and, very cheaply put together. Which, I'm not knocking the movie for being cheap, because I'm pretty sure, like, in this day and age, trying to raise the money for this kind of slasher is probably really hard. Like, the last movie I could think of that was like this was actually the Silent Night remake from a few years back. Originally, I didn't care for very much, but it's actually grown on me over time. But now I'm reviewing a completely different movie, so, let's move on. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, you remember how, a few weeks ago I mentioned that we had already started shooting the latest episode and that was a good thing because that means it'll be out soon? Well, it turns out we kind of fucked up on the audio on some of them. We turned it up a little too loud, and it wasn't until I got into the editing room that I found out that we had to reshoot a whole chunk of the new video. And thankfully we did, and it's now underway again, and we got about 2 more bits to shoot, but that is the reason why the video wasn't out by Thanksgiving, but hopefully I'll have it out by Christmas. It is by no means a Christmas special, but whatever, it's a new video, and I hope you end up enjoying it. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, I'm gonna get back to working on that video and putting this here vlog together. So peace out, and I'll catch y'all later.